gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
What is going on, CaneSport? Izubee Charles, joined by Stephen Wagner, and I'd like to thank everyone for joining us on this Monday morning, June 3rd, for Good Morning CaneSport. Stephen, we had a super busy weekend, and if you blinked over the last few days, you probably missed one of the 16 stories that we have on all 16 guys that officially visited Miami this weekend. Sunday, we caught up with a handful of those guys, and Stephen, just your overall impressions of this recruiting weekend that Miami just had, and what are your thoughts after speaking with a handful of those prospects before we dive deep into each guy?
Yeah, Miami's first recruiting weekend went very well, I felt. Now, I kind of want to remind fans that we're not expecting June to be the month where Miami lands the bulk of its commits. I think that's probably more likely to come in July and August, although we do expect a few more kids to be added to the class this month. Wouldn't surprise me if anywhere between 3 and 5 kids end up committing. Obviously, more committing would be welcome news, but it seemed like Miami did a really good job setting a high bar with this first group of kids. The Hurricanes got a group of kids down that they feel really good about. They had 3 commits. Their 2 4-star tight ends, Luka Gilbert and Brock Schott, who they feel just tremendous about. And then TK Mew, that 3-star offensive lineman that Cristobal and Mirabal are absolutely convinced is going to be another Inez Cooper, and is someone who they believe is a star or is a future star that has been massively overlooked by a lot of different teams and recruiting sites. So Miami's definitely betting on themselves in that one. But also had guys down like a 4-star wide receiver Tyler Williams, who's been one of their top receiver targets in this class for quite some time, dating back to January. Had other guys like 4-star running back Byron Lewis, who's been kind of a hard guy to figure out. But there's a bunch of guys, there were a bunch of guys here this weekend that I think the Hurricanes feel really good about.
Yeah, so I'm going to go through those 16 guys for the people at home that aren't familiar with who's all on campus for official visits this week. So we're going to start with Byron Lewis, Jaden Wilkerson, Eric Winters, Shakai Mills-Knight, Floyd Buchard, Andrew Purcell, Tyler Williams, Jabari Antoine, the LSU commit, like you mentioned, Aiden Anding, Javion Campbell, Zion Grady, TK Mew, Luka Gilbert, Ezekiel Marcelin, Brock Schott, and Hayden Lowe. Those were the 16 guys on campus. And Steven, I want to ask you, out of those 16 guys, who are 2 guys that you were really impressed with and think Miami, did a great job of moving the needle with? And then I'm going to follow up, after you go. Or if you want me to go first, I can start with 2 guys that I think Miami really moved the needle with this weekend.
Man, that is a really good question. I think Eric Winters, I think Miami did a very good job setting an early bar for Eric Winters. I also think the Hurricanes did a pretty good job kind of setting a high bar with Floyd Buchard, the 3-star defensive tackle out of Miami Central. I think the Hurricanes are going to be a presence in that recruitment for a very long time. Both gave very glowing reviews. Hurricanes seem to have done very well with both of them.
Yeah, I want to go to the opposite side of the ball. My first guy, I think Miami really did a great job with, kind of setting themselves as the leader in the recruitment of 4-star Armwood wide receiver Tyler Williams. He seemed ecstatic coming out that visit, and had the chance to talk with his dad a little bit, and they can all see themselves in Miami. For Tyler Williams, it's not just a decision he's going to make; it's a decision that's going to involve his family. And he said, after speaking with the coaches, after hanging out with players on the team right now, he could really see himself and his family down in Coral Gables, living their life down there while he plays for the Hurricanes and attends the University of Miami. Another guy I want to highlight, I want to talk about LSU commit Jabari Antoine. This is a guy that the entire Hurricane staff is extremely high on. I had the chance to speak with someone that's really involved in that recruitment on the Hurricane staff, and they think he's one of, if not the best cornerback in the 2025 class. We know he's committed to LSU, and that seemed like a big gap between LSU and Miami or any other program, to say the least, with his recruitment. But I feel like after this weekend, Miami's that number 2 program in his recruitment. he's really high on Miami. Jabari's not a guy, over the conversation I had with him, he's not a guy that's, really outgoing and, really expressing himself. But, after this visit, he had a huge smile on his face. He wants to come back for a game day visit. And I think, Coach Lance Guidry and Coach Chevis Jackson have a great chance of potentially, positioning themselves for a flip down the road. And, if Miami wins this season, I really do think they have a chance with Jabari Antoine. Like I said, the LSU commit that's been committed to the Tigers for a long time from Louisiana. So it's going to be hard to pluck him out of the boot. But I think the Hurricanes are the program that can do so if things go well this season and they're able to get him back on campus. So a lot of guys we touched on yesterday. Like I mentioned, 16 prospects on campus yesterday and throughout the weekend at Miami. So make sure to check out those updates if you have not already. Ton of great information from 16 guys that can potentially be, Miami Hurricanes down the line. But yesterday we also had Miami's first prospect camp, 7-on-7 camp, in an offensive line and defensive line camp. 3 key prospects were on campus yesterday. We'll start with Ben Hanks. Steven, we've watched Ben Hanks since last year, and he continues to get better and better every single time. After watching him yesterday with Booker T. Washington, who ended up winning Miami's 7-on-7 camp, what are your thoughts on him? And what did he have to say, when you spoke with him?
Yeah, Ben's a guy who I think has kind of emerged as kind of the top cornerback in South Florida. He's an uber priority for Miami. There seems to be a good amount of confidence that Florida is going to be able to get him, given his dad's ties to the Gators. But there's also a good amount of confidence that Miami is going to have an awesome chance with him. With Booker T being right there down the road. Mario Cristobal himself got out to his school earlier this spring to check up on him, meet with him face to face. And then also Georgia. You cannot count Georgia out of the mix for any elite defensive back. Well, any elite defensive player, period. But Hanks is a guy, he's long, lanky, very skinny, but incredibly twitchy. Like I said, awesome length, awesome hips, awesome footwork, very good top end speed, very good understanding of different route concepts and zone responsibilities for a high school senior. Whenever he presses, he does not bail. He holds his ground. He wants to jam you at the line of scrimmage, despite being a little bit of a skinnier guy, kind of a quiet kid off the field. But boy, once he gets on the field, he'll start chirping a little bit. And I do not view that as a bad thing in a defensive back at all. You want a DB to kind of have that cockiness, to kind of have that mentality of I will lock anyone up in America. I am the best cornerback in America, and there's not a receiver who can beat me. And that's what we've seen a lot of with Ben Hanks. He's got an OV set with Miami here in the coming weeks. He just got back from an official visit to Louisville, which he said went pretty well. But Miami is going to have a very good chance to make a big impression whenever he gets down for that official visit. I think it's just going to be a matter of, is the impression that Miami is going to make, will that be enough to hold off schools like Florida and Georgia? And then, of course, Louisville. You can't overlook Louisville, who has been in his recruitment for a very long time. Louisville, they really in the last couple of years, they have made a really big habit of offering South Florida kids very early, getting on their trail or getting into their recruiting pictures very early in their very early in their process. You see them rolling out offers to kids at Miami Central, Booker T, Miami Northwestern. Really a lot of, the traditional powerhouses down in South Florida, or I should say some of the public school powerhouses down in South Florida. And that's definitely been the same with Ben Hanks. I think right now any school that he is taking an official visit to will have a chance. But I think if there's 3 schools that it's really going to come down to, I think it'll be Miami, Florida, and Georgia.
Yeah, Ben Hanks is an awesome prospect, and a lot of people in that building down in Coral Gables think he is, if not, one of the best shutdown corners in South Florida. And you can just, watch that. After watching him yesterday, I thought it was pretty funny. He was playing zone, and he actually pushed his teammate into an interception. Just tells you, what type of kid this guy is. He really locks down one side of the field. And like you mentioned, a quiet kid on the field, but he turns it up and kind of shows that swagger and shows his personality when he's on the field making big plays. He doesn't talk a big game, but he definitely has one. And he's a prospect, like I said, a lot of people in the building down there really, really like and really would love to keep in South Florida playing for the Hurricanes. Another DB that we had the chance to watch a little bit yesterday was Bryce Fitzgerald, who was also fresh off an official visit. He has the Hurricanes in the mix in his recruitment. It looks like he's going to get down there for an official visit as well. Steven, you had the chance to speak with Bryce. What's the latest on that, and what's he saying about Miami?
Yeah, I really do think that Miami's going to have an awesome shot with Bryce. He's taking a bunch of visits. Did not have an official visit, or will take an official visit to Miami. Will take an official visit to Florida. Seems like a lot of the South Florida schools have really put themselves in the best positions for Bryce. Right now, he's over at Miami Columbus, who has been a who's been a school that Miami has been very heavily involved in recruiting. Obviously, Mario Cristobal played there when he was in high school. Alex Mirabal used to be the coach there, so the Canes have a ton of ties to Columbus. And right now, Fitzgerald's probably their most intriguing prospect in the 25 class. 4-star safety, very good ball skills. Really a star in 7-on-7. We had a chance to watch him in 7-on-7. I mean, man, there was not a play that this kid could not make either offensively or defensively. He's listed at safety. He played a good amount of corner yesterday, and honestly, he is kind of an intriguing prospect at cornerback. I could see him kind of maybe even being a nickel, just based on his top end speed and his size. He's not an overwhelmingly massive guy. I'm about 5'11", and he's about my size, even with his fro. But I do think that Miami's going to have a really good chance for him. I like Miami's chances. Maybe don't necessarily love their chances. I'm not sure if I would put in an RPM for him. But I do really like the chance that Miami will have.
Yeah, a local kid with a ton of visits to Miami already logged in. I think that official visit could play a key factor to really see where the Hurricanes, stand in his recruitment, and if he ends up being a Miami Hurricane at the end of the day. Great guy in the defensive back, in the back of a defense. I'm losing my words right now. Crazy day yesterday, but a great guy on the back end of a defense.
Hey, we had an 11-hour day yesterday. We're allowed to lose a couple of words.
A guy that I feel like you can move, like you mentioned, in a lot of different positions in that secondary, corner, safety, free safety, strong safety, nickel, all that good stuff. Just an athlete that has made a name for himself playing at the highest level, winning the state title at Columbus, and a lot of programs are chasing. So got to keep an eye out on that recruitment. I feel like we've talked so much about the potential future of Miami. I kind of want to talk about the present of Miami, what's coming up this fall. We had two really good stories on Miami new quarterback Cam Ward and Damian Martinez that you don't want to miss. I actually caught up with Cam Ward's quarterback coach out of Houston, Daryl with Select QB. Awesome guy. Told me a bunch of great stuff about Cam. He's been working with Cam since his days at UIW out there in Texas, and he's seen him go from an FCS quarterback to one of the best quarterbacks in the country, Power 5 guy or Power 4 guy at Miami. He had a lot of great things to say. It's pretty cool. Earlier this spring, Cam actually hosted a handful of Miami Hurricanes wideouts in Houston, got to work with Daryl, got to work at his facilities, and really kind of create that off-season bond that, shows in the fall. So make sure to check out that update with Cam and his quarterback coach Daryl with Select QB. Steven, I kind of want to ask you, I know we've been so recruiting focused these last few weeks, but this fall is getting closer and closer. We're 2 months or 3 months out from, that first game, August 31st in the Swamp. What are your expectations and what are your thoughts about, what this offense can do with bringing in guys like Cam Ward, Damian Martinez, Sam Brown, and bringing back guys like Xavier Streppo, Jacoby George, and that crew of guys on the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, okay. So from a weapon standpoint, we know Miami has weapons. I don't think anyone's debating that. But every single Mario Cristobal team, their heart and soul has been the offensive line. They will go as the offensive line goes. And right now, Miami's offensive line looks like it's in really good shape. We know Miami wants to run the ball. We know Cristobal wants to run the ball, and he wants to be able to build around that offensive line. It seems like they finally have all of the pieces together to be able to do that. Francis Mauigoa is going into his second year. Zach Carpenter is a center who it seems like they really, really believe in. Inez Cooper, I think, is going to have a really, really good season. Damian Martinez, it looks like, could be their workhorse back, and I think is going to be, I think personally, was the best available prospect in this most recent round of the transfer portal. I think Cam Ward was probably the best overall prospect in the first round of the transfer portal. I liked Cam Ward more than Will Howard. I mean, straight up, I did. And a lot of that was because he did way more with way less at Washington State. People do not appreciate just how much he had to overcome at Washington State, because that was not a fantastic roster that he had, but he still put up massive offensive numbers, still knocked off a top 25 team that finished with 10 wins in Oregon State, which coincidentally is with where Damian Martinez came from. But Miami cleaned up in the portal. They got the best two guys out of the last two portal cycles. But I'm digressing a little bit. But even once you pair Martinez with other running backs who can spell him, like Mark Fletcher and even Jordan Lyle, who I think Jordan Lyle was the highest floor recruit in this last running back cycle. Maybe I'll be honest, I'm not sure what he's going to turn into, but we know what he is now, and he is extremely polished. He's coming in, I think, ready to contribute immediately, even after not being able to be here for the spring, because he'll be able to get full summer workouts in. He'll be able to get a full fall camp in. And I think he's a guy who's going to see the field so clearly and has such experience running behind good offensive lines that he really will be able to plug in almost seamlessly at Miami. I think by the middle of the season, he's going to have some he's going to be a real contributor to this offense. But I mean, going into the Florida game, I do not love Florida's defensive line. I do not love their defensive tackles. Their edges, I'm not really sure how much I love their ability to run the pass or to rush the passer, but Miami should be able to run on this Florida defensive line and on this Florida front seven, which, I mean, to be honest, is what you're going to need whenever you go into a challenging environment for your first game of the season. Say what you will about maybe how you feel about the state of the Gators' current defensive roster, but we all know that if you walk into a packed house of 90,000 fans in a rivalry game, that's going to be a really, really rattling environment for, just about any players in America. So for just about any offensive skill players in America. So I think being able to lean on an offensive line, being able to lean on that running game, I think that is just going to. I can't see how Miami could, maybe find a way to fall short in that game yet. Although, give me a few weeks, and I might be second guessing that a little bit, but as long as Miami's offensive line plays the level that I think they're going to play, and as long as they can run the football, I think the way Cristobal wants to run the football, I do think Miami's going to be all right in that game, and I do think Miami is going to meet their expectations week one.
Yeah, no, one kind of thing I feel like people are kind of not undermining, but forgetting about is you're bringing back Jalen Rivers at left tackle. He had an excellent, season last year at left tackle. He's not a guy that we're like, oh man, Jalen Rivers did this or Jalen Rivers messed up this. He quietly had a really good year. I'm excited to see, what he can do in his fifth and final year in Miami. And like you mentioned, guys like Inez Cooper, Francis Mauigoa, Zach Carpenter, and then that left guard is a little bit questionable right now. We don't know who's going to plug in that spot that last year that was filled. But, I'm excited about this offense. I think this offense could potentially finish as a top 10 offense in the country. I had a chance to speak with Xavier Restrepo, on Saturday this weekend as well, or this past weekend. And, he had a lot of great things to say about that offense. He's going to be back and healthy. We know the type of season he had last year. And he said he thinks this offense is going to run it up on a lot of people. So excited to see what they can do this upcoming fall, man. And I want to, hear what you guys have to say as well, whether it's on the message board or in the comments down below. Do you think this Miami offense has the talent, has what it takes to be a top 10 offense? I really do think they can put up a lot of great numbers this upcoming season. I'm just really excited to see what a Cam Ward offense with all those weapons in that offense line can do for the Hurricanes under Shannon Dawson, who I think has a lot more tricks up his sleeves and will kind of showcase that he's, one of the better offensive coordinators in the country. He has in the past with a few great offenses, and I think he'll do that in Miami in year 2. So let me know in the comments what you guys think about this Hurricanes offense, and do you think they can be a top 10, offense in the country with these weapons that they have? Continue to talk about the current team. We continue our countdown of the top 50 roster players, and we check in with 29, Marley Cook, number 28, Jalen Alderman, and number 27, Jedias Richards. 3 guys who I think will be solid contributors on the defensive side of the ball. Also on the site this morning, we have an Inside the Lines feature with 2026 Miami commit Malachi Tony, who I am extremely high on, and the Hurricane staff is extremely high on him as well. Steven, I know Malachi is a few years away from getting on campus and making plays in a Hurricanes uniform, but just after watching that young man play the last 2 years, what are your thoughts on Malachi Tony and what type of prospect he is?
Man, I love the player that he's developed into. We've already known what he would be or what he can do, but I've been really, really impressed by kind of the prospect that we saw this spring. Whenever I had a chance to see him in person, I mean, he's bigger, he's bulkier, he's filling out very, very well for being kind of an undersized receiver. He's not overwhelmingly tall. But he's developing into a very bulky interior slot receiver. He's added a lot of very good weight. It seems like he's been doing very, very well at track as well. So we know his speed won't be an issue. I mean, as long as he continues to progress this fall, I think that Miami will have themselves a very good slot receiver.
Yeah, absolutely love the game of Malachi Tony. Glad Miami got him on the board early, and just hoping that they can, keep him away from a lot of programs. They're going to try to jump into South Florida and take him out of the Hurricanes' backyard. But that's going to wrap it up for us today. Good morning, CaneSport. Like I said this morning, if you blinked yesterday, you probably missed one of those 16 recruiting stories that we had up on all the official visitors. So make sure to check those all out if you haven't. Stay tuned on the website for a bunch of more content this Monday morning for you. For Stephen Wagner, I'm Izubee Charles. Thank you all for starting your day with us. I hope you have a great rest of your day.